Hi, this is Allison Backus Troy. This is my next video in the Shared World, which is my online humanities and everyday life project. I'm sharing a video today because I have a little bit of time, because it is that wonderful time of the year where children go back to school. My son starts kindergarten today, and that means that, he goes to school. My husband is teaching at the school that he is at this year, and so they both leave, and I miss them, and I also go back to bed and catch up on like a summer of not napping. So I'm glad to have the time to be able to put some of this together for you today. Some people have asked me, just as a personal thing, like, oh, are you sad about like your son starting kindergarten and like these transitions? Because my son is like, he just turned 6 a couple weeks ago, and he is a tall kid who is so ready for kindergarten. He is so ready to be not just like, I mean, it's hard to say, because it's like, you reach a certain point in the summer where, like, if you're a parent, you really like need a change in schedule, and your kid needs a change in schedule too. I don't feel sad about my son going to kindergarten. I feel like he is so ready. He had like 3 years of pre-K, and is just really ready for the challenges that await him, and for the stimulation, and for the learning and the wisdom that he's going to acquire. And he's very ready. And I'm really excited for him to be able to encounter this, because it's like, he started reading over the summer just like on his own. And I'm like, you know what? Like, yes, you need the joy of the classroom. I'm really excited for him to have that. So I don't feel sad. I am very excited for him to be encountering this learning space and to be moving on in his life as a learner. And part of the reason I wanted to make a video, especially today, is that, like, there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about what I've been reading in Michael Levinson's book, The Humanities in Everyday Life. And I also wanted to connect it to this, going back to school time of year, and how important teaching and entering classrooms are for sharing the humanities, and then to offer a poem by Dante DiStefano, who wrote this really beautiful poem called Prompts for High School Teachers Who Write Poetry. And I think that this poem connects a lot of things. So I wanted to give you an update on this book, because I've been very slow in reading it, and part of that has been in the summer, but just the challenges of the end of summer and scheduling and stuff like that. But I wanted to share this particular quote out loud, and share it with you, because I think that something that I see as an opportunity for this channel is to really offer a positive voice and, clearinghouse of resources for people to engage in the humanities, because there is so much negative talk about, the humanities and wider education in the United States. We hear a lot especially in higher ed, about the decline of the humanities and the decline of humanities offerings. It's been really interesting talking with some of my coworkers about this channel, and, we're all at the university I work at, online from home. We all have backgrounds in, teaching at the college level and working in a university setting. And so many people have said to me, I'm really grateful for this channel, because, like, I've worked at places where, they're vastly cutting humanities courses, even at the school that I work at, the humanities course that they offered for students, which was just kind of like a broader intro to lit course, they really pared down in focus of like offering students more like technical courses for their programs. And it's hard, because there really is, like, there are a lot of different crises in higher ed and in in American public schooling in general, that are connected to not being able to provide the same kind of opportunities for studying the humanities that I got when I was in middle school and high school. I remember being in my junior humanities class. Like, I had a class called it was humanities, and it was social studies and in history and literature and writing. And my wonderful teacher, Dan Krupa, who was just a phenomenal human being and a phenomenal instructor, just let me read The Grapes of Wrath, like, by myself in class. Like, it was like an option for me while other people were doing other things. And it's hard to offer that now, it's hard to offer that in, a regular high school setting. Like, okay, you just go ahead and go read this book while other people are doing other things. You are seeing much more, teaching for assessment and lots of group projects and things like that. But not to say that a group project can't be, that's kind of a weird thing to say. You just see a lot less freedom in offering humanities connections in classrooms, and you see that especially in higher ed. And so there's a lot of language about the crises of the humanities, and that's a real thing. It really is a real thing. But what I really like about Levinson, and what I think is really important about this channel, and what I hope it offers, is that there's a lot of opportunity for the humanities, especially in the United States, and especially when it comes to like public access for so many people. Not just access, like, oh, I'm going to watch this PBS musical special and then be done, but also providing resources for classrooms and for our beloved teachers, and for continuing ed from pre-K through adult education. There's just so much going on in terms of arts councils and museum work, and the things that Levinson points out in this book, which are a little bit more quotidian. He spends a lot of time talking about like book clubs and Wikipedia and historical reenactors, and kind of like these more grassroots types of humanities involvement. But he really sees this as like a rich time for the humanities, and that's something that really encourages me for this channel, because I really want this to be, a place where people can see like how easy it is and how many opportunities they have on a daily basis to encounter poetry and the arts and various historical things and various philosophical things. So there's just so much out there in our very information saturated time, and there are really a lot of ways to have real life connection. So here's this quote that I wanted to share with you. And this is just from his introduction. So he says, "Of course, there are urgent issues for the university, and especially its humane disciplines. But the pressing issues are at the same time chronic problems that cannot be resolved in any thinkably near future. Crisis talk becomes thin, brittle, predictable. The enterprise of the humanities will not disappear. The demand to preserve, compare, and interpret is securely embedded in too many people and too many long-standing social practices. It's not going away. So too is a readiness to pose difficult questions, both to the arrangements of the world and to the arrangements of the self. The counterforces are strong, growing, and better funded. What's new?" I'm still sitting with this quote, but I think that what I hear Levinson saying here is that the work of the humanities across, time and cultures and parts of the world and in our present moment, it's not going away. It's not. On my last video, I talked about how I was planning on going to this Shakespeare festival that's here in Houston. And I ended up going that night. I went with my husband, and it was awesome. I mean, it was here in this big public park in Houston. It's been like 100 some odd degrees every day here for the past 2 weeks, but it had cooled off, and there were kids running around and people bringing picnic baskets, and people from all different walks of life, people who, were immigrants to Houston, people who, it was just like a wide smattering of people who came to watch Julius Caesar. Now, I don't know if I would bring my 6-year-old to watch Julius Caesar, but they were there, and it was just such a lovely, open experience, and it was free, and it's for the public. I'm like, there are just so many things like this. There's so many things like this, and there are so many opportunities for us to participate in the humanities, and so many places that are trying to offer them, that I really hope that this channel, and particularly my Facebook page for the Shared World, really offers. So the enterprise of the humanities is something that's not going away. And for me, one of the key places that you see this enterprise happening, and why I wanted to talk about it in conjunction with, what's going on with me this week, is that the classroom is really where so many people encounter texts and ideas and interactions within the humanities in a way that remains with them the rest of their lives. When I was teaching, it was always really important for me to offer resources and readings to my students that, they could always have with them, that they could always have like this book on their shelf, they could always have this list of websites to go to, that would remain with them, and that would be easily accessible to them. And I think that as so many people are preparing to go into their classrooms this week and next week, whether you are starting school, whether you are sending people off to school, whether you are, one of the wonderful, beloved, saintly people who is preparing a classroom, regardless of what age group, you have like this entry into a really beloved, important space where people are seen for who they are, as students and as learners, and as people who are welcome to the table of encountering important pieces of the humanities, whether that's like critical theory kinds of stuff, or working with alphabet songs like my son's gonna be doing. Like, you're encountering language, and you're encountering thought, and you're encountering history and the history of that thought, and across a wide variety of disciplines, you're coming into that important space to encounter that. And like I said, I had so many wonderful experiences with my teachers who opened up the world of humanities to me, and there's so many others who, the classroom is this almost sacred space where people come from all the experience they have behind them, and they come around a text, and they come around a poem. And the poem that I wanted to offer for you all this week, as we continue to enter into the school season, and also as we continue to think about what humanities in everyday life looks like, is this poem by Dante Di Stefano, who this poem won the 2019 On Teaching Poem Prize, which the poet Richard Blanco presided over. And I think I read this poem longer ago than it won this prize, but it's just, I think for me what it does is that it shows the importance of that classroom as a space where people come with their full lives to gather around something. And, as we think about this channel and about the various artifacts and connections of the humanities, and we think about encountering them ourselves, we have to think about what we bring, and we have to think about what we connect to the texts and to the ideas and the stories that we associate with the humanities and that come to us in those classroom spaces. So let me read you this poem, and then I'm hoping that you have a good week. So this is, again, Prompts for High School Teachers Who Write Poetry by Dante Di Stefano. Write about walking into the building as a new teacher. Write yourself hopeful. Write a row of empty desks. Write the face of the student you've almost forgotten. He's worn a Derek Jeter jersey all year. Do not conjecture about the adults he goes home to, or the place he calls home. Write about how he came to you for help each October morning his sophomore year. Write about teaching Othello to him. Write, wherein of entrees vast and deserts idle, rough quarries, rocks and hills whose heads touch heaven. Write about reading his obituary 5 years after he graduated. Write a poem containing the words common, core, differentiate, and overdose. Write the names of the ones you will never forget. Jenna, Tiberius, Heaven, Megan, Tanya, Kingsley, Ashley, David. Write Mary with nobody's baby tattooed in cursive on her neck, spitting 16 bars in the back row as little white Mike beatboxed a candy shop and the whole class exploded. Write about Zuli and Neely, sisters from Guatemala, upon whom 1,000 strange new English words rained down on like hail each period, and who wrote the story of their long journey on La Bestia through Mexico for you, in handwriting made heavy by the Aquis and Ayers ached in their knuckles, hidden by their smiles. Write an ode to loose leaf. Write elegies on the nub nose of a pink eraser. Carve your devotion from a number 2 pencil. Write the uncounted hours you spent fretting about the ones who cursed you out for keeping order, who slammed classroom doors, who screamed, "You are not my father," whose pain unraveled and broke you, whose pain you knew. Write how all this added up to a life. I love the the listing that he does in this poem about how you just get so many different student experiences, and how each of these students are really seen as whole people, and you get this sense of, you know, their grandness, and you know, you get I mean, I just love that you hear these lines from Othello, and what juxtaposes them is, you know, the experiences of these students, and they're no less regal and they're no less important. So I will put a link to this poem on my Facebook page, and I hope that you follow that page, because I put a lot on there to help you kind of think about what your connection to humanities in the everyday life is, and everyday life. So so there is that. And as I keep reading and as I keep adjusting myself into a new school year and having some other time, we'll see some new things that this channel does. And I hope you have a good week, and I hope that you're able to find in your own life and in the rhythms of your day what it means to connect to the humanities for you.